Welcome to the Michigan Works Association 2021 Annual Conference. My name is Tom Audio, and I am the training specialist with Upper Peninsula Michigan Works. On behalf of the staff at the association and all of our sponsors, we would like to thank you for being a part of this conference and the session today titled Virtual Recruiting Success from Beginning to End. Please be sure to visit the exhibitor booths during the designated exhibit hall times. Before we begin today's session, there's just a few housekeeping items I want to share with you. Over the course of the presentation, if you are not speaking, please make sure that your audio is muted so that we can eliminate on any of that potential background noise. There will be a Q&A session at the end, so if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to post those in the Q&A chat box, and we will get to those at the end. We are eager for your feedback about this conference and this session in particular, so I'll be posting a link to a survey in the chat. So if you could just take a moment to respond to that, it would be greatly appreciated. Presentations will be available post-conference on the Michigan Works Association website if you are interested in viewing those at a later time. And without any further ado, I would like to hand things over to our presenters to introduce themselves. So thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you very much, Tom. Thank you for that setup for everyone, and please be kind with your evaluations. So welcome and good morning, and we're going to talk about successful virtual recruiting from beginning to end. So we'll be talking about why you might want to take on a virtual recruiting event, the advantages for employers, advantages for job seekers, the planning of the events, and the assistance that you can expect from the state of Michigan and LEO, Labor and Economic Opportunity. So we'll discuss your job as a host of virtual events. We'll share some success stories. We'll talk about statewide promotional efforts for these events. And we'll hear about some very successful local promotional efforts as well. I have an amazing group of presenters with me who will each speak to their expertise. And my tip for the day, and this will be worth your entry fee to the whole conference, is surround yourself with amazing people like I have today, and you'll look amazing, and eventually you'll be amazing. So I would like to introduce myself. I'm Stephen Gelant. I am a talent development liaison with the state of Michigan, Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. We'll be discussing the talent development liaison's role in this virtual recruiting later on in my presentation, so I'll skip that for now. I have with me Joe Winkiel, who is a business service officer from Capital Area Michigan Works. I have Elise Walter, who is the administrative manager for communications and outreach with LEO, Labor and Economic Opportunity. And we have Emma Heikkinen, who is an assistant strategist for Piper and Gold. So let's go on with the show. So did you know that LEO's Office of Employment and Training provides an online virtual job fair platform available at no cost? Did you? Well, we do. So we began having these virtual job fair events in June of 2020. We did that as an emergency response to COVID, because by June, things really started in earnest around March with COVID, and by June, any place that was having even a little bit of difficulty surviving was, beginning prior to COVID, was beginning to shut down at this point. So we needed to keep the economy moving amidst these closures. There were lots of people looking for work as they had lost their jobs, and we needed to find a way to do it virtually without a lot or any contact. So since June of 2020, we've had more than 130 virtual job fair events statewide. And when I say more than 130, I mean 134, but I think more than 130 sounds better. We've had more than 12,000 job seekers attend these events, and to include with that, almost 2,900 employers. So an interesting thing that we learned from Brazen, who is the platform for our virtual job fairs currently, is that 78% of those job seekers were rated by employers as a candidate to either interview or to add to the talent pipeline. So 78% of those were rated by employers as quality candidates. So if you're doing the math at home, that's about 9,360 candidates that were rated as 78% of what the employers were really looking for. We have 22 upcoming events so far scheduled. I know of 3 at least that are in the hopper or in the book, so they are coming. So I'm not lying when I say that we will have at least 25 more events by the end of the year. I think, next slide, please. So why have a virtual job fair? Why a virtual event? So that's a great question. So let's talk about some of the benefits, and we'll begin with benefits to our employers. So virtual job fairs are incredibly efficient, and they typically have a higher than average attendance for the in-person events. Now, I know there's some of you out there who are probably, I'm not sure if Kevin Chow is in the audience, but I know if he is, he's getting out his calculator again to see if our numbers for attendance are higher than in-person events. But if you do the simple math, you'll get an average of 92 people. But I want you to realize that our numbers are skewered lower by holding some highly specific events that we hold, which are things such as veteran only, healthcare only, some engineering, electrical positions, events that we were looking for, really just people with a very particular skill set. So those had lower attendance naturally because there were just fewer people with those skills. So it does skew our numbers a little lower. Some of our high numbered events have been in the 400s, so we do see a lot of people. These virtual events strengthen employer brand, and that's assuming that employers do a good job with their booths. It's all about building the booth up, making sure that there's lots of information in there for job seekers. It improves the candidate experience through the recruiting process by being easy, by being available. It saves time and money for businesses, for recruiters, even job candidates, because when you think about it, there's no travel to the event, there's no hotel, there's no time away from work. As some detriments, there's also no candy, and there's no trinkets or swag. And those are things that I really do honestly miss. I really honestly miss from in-person events, because I like chatting up people at the table, grabbing a couple fun-sized Snickers and a miniature screwdriver set. But none of that at virtual events. But also, there is no need for things like pants and shoes that an in-person event demands. So another plus. It provides access to available job seekers, including UI claimants and the Pure Michigan Talent Connect users. And that's something I'm just going to touch on it briefly, but Elise will be talking about that in more depth shortly. One of the really nice things, that allows reviews of candidates' profiles and resumes ahead of time. So there's pre-screening involved. Employers can also use a feature that's called Smart Queue, and it orders candidates in line, so that you're talking to the most qualified individuals first in line, and it goes all the way down to the least qualified for your positions. And that's based on predetermined questions that employers can load into the system. Employers can now even schedule the times during the event that they'd like to chat with job seekers, so they can actually make an appointment rather than just taking the people as they come. And probably most importantly, employers can screen and rate the candidates for the next steps following each interview. They have access to all the job seeker information and their notes on the platform for 6 months following the event, and they have access to it forever if they choose to download that information. So they don't have to try to match 103 sticky notes with the resumes of people who they've talked with, like at a in-person event. Next slide, please. We'll talk some benefits to job seekers, and we've touched on some of these already. It's a really user-friendly experience. It's really easy. This is not anything that's too difficult for anyone. It's a very simple interface, but it also includes an online virtual event guide, which is handy for beginners. There's a really easy registration process. It compiles all their information, their resume, has their LinkedIn profile, contact information, and more. There's an intuitive virtual lobby where job seekers can see all the employers that are present at a glance. So they get a great overview when they first come into the event. And they're only a click away from learning more about the business and even chatting, of course, via text or video. Some employers opt to have their own custom videos playing in the lobby, which goes back to strengthening the employer brand that we talked about earlier. So there are some really great features that employers can incorporate to really strengthen their brand on the platform. It also helps job seekers engage in a way that's comfortable for them. As I said before, no traffic, no health risk, there's no standing in line, and again, of course, there's no expensive shoes or pants to buy for these events. Next slide, please. So now I know what you're thinking as a potential host, as an employer, even a job seeker. This must be an absolute nightmare to put something like this together. So we know your time's valuable, and our time's valuable too. So we realize we're not rocket scientists, but we know no one's willing to sign up for more frustration in their life, correct? Right. So we made the process quick and easy. It's virtually painless. See what I did there? Virtually painless. So you get lots of support with these events, lots of it. One of the first things that Leo does after approving your request for an event is to assign a talent development liaison, or a TDL, to your event. And I mentioned that I would be talking about TDLs again. TDLs, I can't say enough good about these folks. They are just amazing, amazing people. They will be your administrator for the event, and they handle everything between you and the platform. I like to call them the expediter of your virtual job fair dreams. That's really what they are. Great people. Moving on, you also get live and online recorded trainings and an extensive online help section. Any question you could ever have about the platform is in that help section, I guarantee it. You'll also get access to 2 Teams channels, one for your event and a general channel, which is filled with information about being successful with the platform, marketing tips, and many, many other tips and tricks. You'll get continued technical support up to and during the event, and you'll get 24/7 live chat support on the virtual platform. It's just a little button on the lower left side of your screen that says chat support, and you can click that 24/7. It's always available. I've clicked it in the middle of the night just to have someone to say hi to, and they're there. Next slide, please. So at this point, the only question you could possibly have is, Steve, how the hell can I be a part of this amazing process? Let me in. So if you're an employer, you can be part of a larger multi-employer event, or you could hold your own virtual Employer of the Day event. All you need to do is contact your local Michigan Works at 800-285-WORKS and say, I'm an employer and I'd like to be part of a virtual job fair. And now that I've said that, there might be people out there who do work at Michigan Works and say, well, I need to learn more about these virtual job fairs as well. So if you're a potential host organization, such as a Michigan Works agency or a community college, or you may even just have questions, email us at leo-vjf@michigan.gov. And now Joe from Capital Area Michigan Works is going to talk with you about how to be a successful host organization. Thanks.
Hey, thanks, Steve, for that. Great informative information. Hopefully job seekers do buy pants for their eventual working time period with the appropriate companies. Well, hey, I just wanted to kind of walk through what that virtual job fair might look like in the preparation for that. And what happens during, I should say, before, during, and after a virtual event. Next screen, please. So what's involved in a virtual job fair? There's a few things that are going to take place. One of the biggest things, though, that you want to make sure is your organization ready, and more importantly, is the company ready to put together a virtual event or a job fair. Want to make sure that the company is prepared for it, and some of the things that they want to know. Obviously, they've got people that need to be filled in for positions within their company, but you want to make sure that they are ready for it, marketing and everything. So it's important to have an employer or Michigan Works location or other partners involved in the preparations. Again, making sure that the companies are ready to get involved, not to have a job fair, just to have a job fair, making sure that they're ready to have that job fair, who's going to be assigned to what. Making sure that dates and times are set up. With the platform, there's a certain amount of slots for during the week in which we can have virtual events. So typically it's 5 a week, and you want to make sure that some of the slots are available for that particular week. But you also want to look at what jobs are being targeted within that company. So you're going to speak with these companies trying to figure out, okay, if it's a smaller company, that's fairly easy. But with a larger company, many different departments, what departments are being targeted, what jobs are being looked at. You want to make sure that you are going over all of these particular things with the company to find out exactly what their needs are and have an understanding of who does what. So from the company's perspective, from that company that you're representing perspective, who's doing what for that particular company. You want to make sure that they have things assigned for that particular company in what they're going to do, whether that's social media, and I'll talk a little bit about that later, but whether it's social media, who's doing what for that company. And then internally, what are you doing inside your company, and who's going to do what roles within your company. What type of event is it? Is it a employer of the day event in which one company can be involved, or is it a larger event where 25 or more companies are going to be involved? You want to kind of figure that out if you're a Michigan Works location or a host organization, what type of event you're going to be holding. Next screen. So after you've done all of that preparation in terms of who's going to do what, then once the company has figured out a date, you're going to submit that application to the state of Michigan and to Leo. It's an approval process that takes place every Thursday morning with a group of us. It's an approval or a denied status. Typically, a majority of them go through. If it gets denied, it's because of some technicality, or there might be another event being held that particular week in which it'll get denied. But once it's approved, you want to initiate the conversation again on what to plan for your next steps. Planning for your next steps is basically to have marketing material available and passed on to the state of Michigan and to other different groups. Next slide. So again, you want to essentially meet with not only if you're the Michigan Works location, you want to schedule a meeting with the TDLs and the companies to make sure everybody's on the same page with the marketing information, who's going to be doing what. You're going to need a company logo that needs to be submitted. Again, you will also want to define the jobs that are going to be focused on. So if it's a small company, that is not necessarily important. But if you're a larger company, if you're a company over 100, 500, 1,000, obviously you're going to have to focus a little bit more on what jobs you're going to be going after, or what the company is wanting to go after in terms of jobs. You want to make sure marketing arrangements are also implemented from the company side and from the Michigan Works or from the host location side. What type of marketing arrangements are being made? And something that we do here at Capital Area Michigan Works is we have an asset map. And what that asset map is, what it does is it defines on, again, who does what time period is that being done. And we record everything in that on when it's been done, or we check it off. There's a checkbox that we check off to make sure that everything's been done that needs to be done. So for example, we have email addresses of certain people. We have who's participating with the particular companies, what their wages might be. We list on different organizations that we're going to be reaching out to as a checklist on how many times we've done it, or who's going to do that, who's going to actually carry that out. So it's a pretty extensive checklist on who does what, and it just makes sure that on both sides people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And in addition to that, it's a robust event. Or I should say, we're using the platform robustly to where companies are going to want to perform in the virtual job fairs again. Next screen. So once you've planned everything out in terms of the marketing, getting all the information out, you want to start figuring out and determine how are you doing 3 weeks out before the event, 2 weeks out before the event, and 1 week before the event. You're going to want to figure that out. And the TDLs are great in doing that. They've got a dashboard that will keep you up to date in what that means in terms of how many people have signed up for the event, how many resumes have been uploaded. All of that's super important on whether or not a virtual event is going to be successful. The marketing efforts, if there is a very few people signed up for an event, you want to make sure that you might have to change your message, or the company might have to change their message on what that looks like. Again, who's been contacted? I talked about that. You want to essentially make sure that both sides, the Michigan Works or the host organization, and the other side, the companies, have done their due diligence in making sure everything's been carried out. There's also, with the virtual platform, a database, and that database will house a lot of the participants and email addresses of those particular participants. Next screen, please. So again, you're going to be encouraging participants to upload their resumes. You can do it by different ways, or the companies can help out with that by having a giveaway, whether it's t-shirts or little things that they might be able to send to different participants. You want to talk with the TDLs on the updates throughout the event. You want to make sure you have a message throughout the event. So maybe the day of, once the event is going on, you want to make sure that you encourage the different participants, and those are the job seekers, to go to different areas of the booth in different companies. There might be larger companies out there that are gathering all the attention. You want to try to encourage the participants to go to the smaller booths or the smaller companies that they might have never heard of. Encourage the people to visit all booths, and the TDLs are really good with that in helping out developing a message for those participants. Next screen. So you've created the event, you've had the event, you're all done with the event. Well, not really. Next screen. What we do here is we like to debrief. We like to have a team meeting. We want to look at comments made by employers and candidates regarding the event. And again, the TDLs will provide the host organizations, or they'll provide the Michigan Works locations those comments. And you want to be able to look through those comments and make sure that if there is an issue, you want to make sure that it doesn't become an issue next time. Or if you're doing something correctly, you want to make sure you look over those things that were done correctly. You can also download the names of the participants into a database for future events. So if you're going to host more than one of these events, you get one out of the way, maybe you get 100 participants, maybe you get 500 participants. You want to make sure you download those into a database for future, so you can have those particular participants participate again in future events. And again, you want to go over what's worked, what didn't work, what wasn't done. You want to make sure you debrief on all of that, because again, you want to make this platform, and you want to make sure that you make the event a success, and you want companies to re-engage or redo this type of event in the future. Last thing, you want to follow up with the companies during the first 2 weeks and 30 days. We appreciate the state of Michigan having this particular platform, Brazen platform, and we want to be able to follow up with that type of information on who's been hired during that first 2 weeks or the first 30 days after the job fair. Next screen. So I want to talk just briefly too about past virtual events and their successes. We've had a few companies do an Employer of the Day event. And when a company chooses to go by themselves, at least here at this location, they're doing about 80% all by themselves in terms of their marketing and their message and all of that. We help out, obviously, but the burden's on them. And we found that companies have a really, really good, companies that are successful have a very good social media presence. That social media presence might be great for some companies and not so good for others. But if you do a virtual event, you will probably more than likely have to do some social media. You want to make sure that your social media is and Emma will go through that with you as well as Elise, but you want to make sure that the message is concise. There is a message. The message might need to be changed, but once the event is over, make sure that the message on social media hasn't ended. And for these companies that are very successful, the social media continues. And there's always that presence of getting people engaged in their social media. So for the companies that have, smaller and big companies that have participated in the Employer of the Day, their social media presence means an awful lot. So with saying that, I will have Elise talk about the state of Michigan and promoting. Thank you.
Oh, there it goes. Good morning, everybody. So yes, I wanted to talk to you guys about sort of the statewide approach as it relates to promoting virtual job fairs. And then Emma is going to get very detailed and focused on what you can potentially do in your local community or regions. Next slide, please. You may have heard both Joe and Steve kind of allude to the fact that your messages, your calls to action, connecting with both employers and potential participants from the job seeker side is really critical to the success of your event. When we signed our agreement with Brazen and when we started offering the platform for virtual job fairs, we knew that these events couldn't be a success in a vacuum. We couldn't just hope that the host or expect the host organizations to kind of go out and do everything on their own, especially when we have access to additional audiences on a statewide level that may benefit from these types of events. So we here at Leo's Office of Employment and Training offer 3 primary opportunities that we can help to promote your upcoming or any upcoming virtual job fairs. And so I'll dive into what those opportunities look like and how you might take advantage of them. But in a nutshell, it includes us sending emails to Michigan's unemployment insurance claimants, sharing messages on our available social media channels, as well as providing events on the career events calendar found at Pure Michigan Talent Connect, the state's labor exchange. Next slide, please. We have been able to communicate directly with unemployment insurance claimants since October of last year. We have a memorandum of understanding in place with Leo's unemployment insurance agency that allows us to pull claimant information in the form of their email address so that we can share with them these opportunities. We target claimants based on where they live regionally or what community or county they are from or live in, as well as what the previous professional experience consists of. We can use things like SOC codes and kind of classifications of positions to narrow in on the type of people or the group of claimants that we may want to communicate with. We then produce emails for them that encourage them to register and or attend virtual job fairs so that they can find their next job, another job, whatever situation they may be at that point in their life. We do ask for a 2-week notice to request processing if you are interested in taking advantage of emailing the UI claimants. Please note, because of the MOU, we as LEO's Office of Employment and Training are the ones that must disseminate the message. We cannot share those email addresses with the host organizations or their partners. We have to send that message to them directly as part of that memorandum of understanding. So we would like 2 weeks in order to properly facilitate those messages in terms of pulling down the appropriate data from the back-end system, preparing the message, ensuring you've reviewed the message and you're comfortable with the language, the graphic elements, the call to action, that all the links are working appropriately, and then we will schedule them for dissemination. If you are within the 2-week window, we can send up to 3 emails on your behalf. We love to send one, about 10 days out, about a week out, and then we love to try to send one the day before. To really try to elicit a response from those claimants so you can take advantage of that audience. Next slide, please. To date, since that time frame, we have emailed more than 850,000 claimants, and we continue to email them really regularly. So that has been a very useful opportunity for us to get information in front of them because they're really in need, or they may be in need, and they may be looking for opportunities where they can then take the next step on their career path. As I mentioned, we include lots of information about the event itself, but we also include boilerplate language in every email. The primary message, if you ever see those emails, is at the very top. We explain why they're getting the message. You are an unemployment insurance claimant, and we are sending you this message to help you find your next step on your employment path. But we also include information in every email that helps them prepare for the upcoming virtual job fair event. So we always make sure to provide a connection to the host organization and or the Michigan Works Agency spearheading the event so that they can contact them if they need help. My resume is not up to date, or I'm not confident in my resume, or how in the world do I participate in a virtual job fair? What tips or tricks may be available to help them feel more confident in their experience? And then we have a couple other messages that we include. That includes the return to work playbook that the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity developed in late spring of 2020. That's really intended to connect individuals to resources to help them get back to work. Again, whether it's their first job, then another job, or their next job, we want them to have access to every resource they can to feel best prepared for whatever those next steps are for them. And then the most recent boilerplate message we've started including, which went into effect at the end of May, is the fact that a virtual job fair serves as an official work search requirement. So unemployment insurance claimants are required to report work search activities, and virtual job fairs count. So we want them to know that there's an added bonus if they are participating in these events, that they can actually report them as their work search activities. So we've included that message as well. Next slide, please. Another opportunity at our disposal is that we will share either organically or reshare your content on our social media channels. So that was something Joe started to tease out, and Emma's really going to get into the value of cultivating great social media content as it relates to virtual job fairs that you are either part of as an employer or a participating agency, or that you're hosting directly. So it's up to you. You can, whenever you guys send things into us, or your TDL shares the event information with our team, we will either share it directly whenever we can, or we are constantly combing the interwebs for messages that we can share on your behalf. But an even quicker way to get on our radar is to tag us. So if you are on Facebook, please tag us at Mich Talent, or follow us so you can tag us. And on Twitter, we're at Michigan Talent. So follow along, tag us wherever it makes sense and whenever possible. And we're going to do our best to get your messages in front of our statewide audience. You never know who we may be able to capture as a result of that. But the quick tip I wanted to include is that we've definitely seen content performs better when there's an image included with it. So keep that in mind. We benefit from seeing or having an image in a variety of the ways that we're promoting the virtual job fairs, including those emails that I mentioned previously. So we would love to see any applicable images that you can provide, even if it's stock oriented or a component of a flyer or something very specific to your event, it's very helpful to us to be able to create a visual element when we're talking about your event. Next slide, please. And then the last critical statewide opportunity for you is that we encourage you to submit your virtual job fair event on the state's labor exchange, Pure Michigan Talent Connect, by visiting mitalent.org. The career events page features upcoming events going on throughout the state, both virtual and in-person event, and it's an extremely easy process to submit that event. I've created or provided a screenshot of the website right here to give you an idea of what that looks like. If you go under the career events section of My Talent, you'll see on the right-hand side of the screen in the kind of goldish section asking you to submit your event and how you might do so. We do ask for at least a 2 business day window. We do have a verification process on the back end that we just need to verify all the details of the event and make sure it's formatted appropriately, and then we can push it to go live as part of that upcoming events section that's located on the left side of that screenshot. So really hoping that you'll take advantage of that free opportunity. All of these opportunities are free, I should preface, and make sure that you also get your events added to the PMTC career events calendar. We know a lot of people are combing through that calendar looking for the next opportunity that's going to capture their attention, and that's an easy win for you if you get it added there. Next slide, please. So then that leads me to welcome Emma to the screen so that she can talk a lot more about other opportunities you can take advantage of respective to your specific events and communities.
Thanks, Elise. Like mentioned before, my name is Emma Heikkinen. I am the Communications Assistant for Capital Area Michigan Works through Piper and Gold Public Relations. So one of the ways I function at Piper and Gold is to serve as the Communications Assistant for Capital Area Michigan Works. So it's really great. I get to be really integrated into everything we're doing there. So today we're going to chat a bit about branding and local marketing efforts for virtual job fairs and events. So at Capital Area Michigan Works, we care a lot about our brand. We know that our visual identity plays a large role in shaping the image of the entire organization, and it's a reflection upon us, our partners, and our subrecipients. The more consistent our visual identity, the stronger the identity of Capital Area Michigan Works becomes in the eyes of the community and of local businesses. So the same attention and care to our brand identity as a whole and on a broad scale also applies to the events that we host. So consistent branding for our virtual job fairs is on the top of our list when we're preparing for these events, and we encourage you to put it on the top of your list as well. So when we talk about branding for a virtual job fair, there are kind of 4 main components that we typically think of. We think of flyers that you can use both in print and digitally. We think of social media posts, and those can be ads or they can be organic posts. We talk about Facebook event, which is, again, tied to social media, but a more specific way you can do that. And then our written content. Any materials that we're producing should be visually branded and contain consistent written messaging. This way, our messages can remain the same to provide clarity on details about the event, and the visual aspect is professional and it's easily recognizable. So people will recognize it once they see it in multiple places. They'll be able to tie it back to your organization and to your event. So when it comes to visual branding, it encompasses the things that we typically think of when we think of branding, right? If you're doing a brand refresh, you're probably looking at your logo, you're looking at your colors, you're looking at the fonts that you're using, design type things. And the most important thing when it comes to visual branding is to keep things consistent. Remember, like we just talked about, the more consistent a visual identity, the stronger the identity of an organization becomes in the eyes of the community and of local businesses. So here are the 2 flyers that we created for a recent virtual job fair we hosted through Capital Area Michigan Works. It was our Capital Area Virtual Job Fair back in April. Since we had 2 different days of the same event, we needed to have different flyers with day-specific links and information and employers, but we needed to make sure that they were still related to each other and recognizable as connected. So we maintained the same general layout as you can see here. Text and information is essentially the same on both, but we used different CAMWA brand colors rotated throughout the flyers to really provide contrast between the two of them, but still stay within Canva's brand. So we still have this red and this teal and this lime green are the colors that we use in all of our branding for Capital Area Michigan Works. And so we just use the same colors but rotated through so that it still look different. You see we have the different images here and the layouts are kind of flip-flopped. And but the employers that are listed are different. The specific links to the event are different. And that way, a lot of times these flyers were being posted together, either on social media or emailed out, so people would know they're connected, but they were still able to see all of the information they needed to without us trying to cram both days onto the same flyer. So when it comes to written content, which is some of the branding things that we might not normally think of, but are really important to a brand, it's, again, very important to keep things consistent. Written content is just as important as the visual content and component when it comes to branding. The way we write and the way that we speak about something heavily impacts the way that we'll understand and respond to the information. As with the visual branding, the key to written content for branding is to keep things consistent. Consistent messaging will provide job seekers the clear information they need to engage with your virtual event, so that they know where to sign up, they know who's going to be there, they know what to expect when they enter the virtual space. If we keep these things consistent in the way that we write about them, the way that we speak about them, then it will be a smoother event for job seekers and everyone can make sure they're getting the full information. We have quite a few ways that the branded written content played into our Capital Area Virtual Job Fair in April. So I'm going to walk through some of those different areas and they kind of encompass some of those earlier branding elements that we've talked about so far. First, we provided participating employers with language to talk about their involvement with the virtual job fair. The first section here, this paragraph you can see, is what we sent to employers and encouraged them to record a quick selfie-style video to post on their social media, on their business's social media. That way, they could casually speak to the camera, casually speak to their audience, but they would have all of the information they needed and they didn't have to worry about what to say. And we really encourage you to have this sort of consistent messaging that you're providing. If you're a host organization, that you're providing it to participating employers. If you're an employer, we encourage you, or you're doing an employer of the day event, we encourage you to write some sort of content like this so that you have an easy way for your people to speak about the event, because it can be hard. You get lost in all the details, but if you have consistent messaging like this, then it's easier for people to always get all the information they need. In the second and third paragraphs here, you can see example social media posts that we sent to employers. Notice that the wording through all of these is very similar. It's essentially the same, just with a few little tweaks here and there. That way, job seekers, again, will be receiving the exact information they need to register and participate, and they're not going to receive conflicting messages from different employers participating in the same event. So local marketing, a lot of our local marketing efforts have to do with this written content. So we're kind of jumping here, but it's still under the same written content umbrella. When it comes to local marketing, the written content that you craft can be repurposed in a variety of ways to locally market your event. This written content carries into the way that we market our virtual job fairs locally and the way that you can as well. Honestly, don't overthink it. Take some time. When it comes to local marketing, think about the resources that you already have access to. So for example, if you have existing relationships with media outlets, contact them. If you have a social media presence, create a Facebook event and social media posts and ads. Media outlets are always looking for stories, so reach out to local stations with a press release or with some information about your event. Use what you have at your disposal and encourage your partners and employers who are participating to do the same. It's easy to go into a tailspin of wondering what kind of marketing efforts you need to do, immediately jumping to spending a lot of money, but like Elise said, there are free resources available to you that make this marketing a lot easier. So take a look at the things that you already have and find ways that you can market within those relationships and those networks. So this is our Facebook event that we created for the Capital Area Virtual Job Fair. Notice that visually, going back to some of those visually branded pieces, it's similar to those flyers. We have the same image here as our day 2 flyer. We're still maintaining those Canwa brand colors. You have the information really simply laid out here, day 1, day 2. And the written content in the description there is similar to the information that we provided to employers for their selfie style videos and for their social media posts. And all this content is also the same as the press release that we sent out to our local media outlets. So no matter where people are looking, if they open up their newspaper and there's a story run on it, if they open up their Facebook feed and they see an ad or they see the event, they see an employer participating, they're getting the same information everywhere they go. So here are a couple of examples of social media posts and ads that we ran to promote the event. Boosted Facebook ads are an affordable way to locally market your events. The budget is completely customizable, and you can target your audience to only be in your local geographic area. Boosting posts is great. Here on the left, you can see a post that we boosted, and you can kind of see down there event responses that we gained from boosting it. You can see the total impressions we got, the cost per event response, what it ended up breaking down to. And those are great, right? Like we got 59 event responses and we had a reach of 3,600 people from this ad. That's a really well-performing ad. It's a great and affordable way to do this. But I also wanted to point to the power of encouraging your employers and partners to share your posts. We have this ad here, but then if you look on the right, we reached over 4,000 people and had 94 engagements with our content because of those 17 shares you can see on the post. So we didn't pay for anything over here on the right. Now, do we know exactly how many event responses or how many people registered based on this? No, but we can see that our reach is higher than when we paid to have a reach happen. And that's because our networks were sharing the content. Those relationships that we've cultivated have led to people sharing this with their networks, with people wanting to tell other people. And we tagged all of the organizations, all of the employers who are participating are tagged in these photos so that they get the notification and they're more likely to share it. And we have built a social media presence. Like Joe was saying before, it's important to have that presence throughout the year. And so since we've built that presence and we're posting daily on our social media, at least once, if not multiple times, every single day we're posting about events, we're posting about open jobs, we're posting about resources. And that way people are used to seeing your content in their feed, they interact with it more. So when it comes to promoting an event, they're more likely to see it based on the algorithms that the social media platforms have in place. So now moving on to some traditional media. Like I mentioned before, media partnerships are a really great way to advertise locally. At Capital Area Michigan Works, we have partnerships with local media as a part of our annual cooperative advertising that we do. So these include weekly columns in the Lansing State Journal, interviews with the Michigan Business Network, and a couple of TV spots with local stations. So we have those resources at our disposal. And so we decided to take advantage of them and use them because it's already something we're doing. So it's really easy to then take those spots that we already have, those partnerships we already have, and insert content about the event so that we can promote it locally. For the Capital Area Virtual Job Fair back in April, we ran 2 different columns in the Lansing State Journal. One of them was at the beginning of the month to serve as a sort of save the date for potential job seekers who would want to attend, and it included resources on how to prepare for a virtual job fair. And that way we could get it in the community's eyes and in their minds a few weeks before the event. And then we also ran a column the week of the event as a reminder, and it listed all of the employers that were participating. And these columns ran both online and in print through those partnerships that we have. We also used one of our interviews with the Michigan Business Network and a spot that we have with WILX's Studio 10 to talk about the upcoming job fair. By doing these 2 specific interviews, we were able to broaden and diversify our audience because the Michigan Business Network is statewide and it also speaks mostly to employers. So we wanted to do this one to not only potentially put our name out for any job seekers who could be listening to this interview, but also to kind of tell employers subtly, like, hey, these events are happening. If you want to get involved, there are ways to do that. Kind of keep it in employers' minds by putting it in something like the Michigan Business Network. And then the WILX Studio 10 helped us to reach the general public, because that's a segment that airs on local TV and it's posted online. So that's something where we can really directly reach those job seekers who may want to attend this event. In all of these media spots, as you can see here with the WILX one, we used our consistent written content and we used our consistent visual branding for the outlets to include and post. That way, again, that content we develop right from the beginning makes sure that everybody's getting the same information no matter where they're getting it from. So it can be hard to know where to start when it comes to branding and when it comes to local marketing. But the most important thing is to keep everything consistent. Like Joe and Elise have mentioned, the more that you are connected to other people, the more that you have those resources, the more you're already out in front of the community through doing media spots occasionally or for posting on your social media consistently, you'll be able to use those connections to your advantage when you're advertising for your local job fairs. Use the branding materials that you already have. If you have certain colors, fonts, logos that your organization uses, carry those over so that your flyers, your marketing materials are automatically recognizable. Lean on the resources and the connections that you already have, because your community and your network are really going to help you advertise better than a hugely expensive campaign in an event like this, like we saw with those social media posts. It's not like we were spending a ton of money on those ads. We were like dropping thousands of dollars on them or anything like that. But it still goes to show that the power of those connections you already have, that already exist, your presence on social media already, really can be more impactful than just throwing money at it. So remember that when it comes to your marketing as well. You have resources like Leo. You can, like Elise said, tag them in your social media posts, tag your partners, tag your employers in the posts, and use those connections. Lean on them, keep it consistent, use the resources you already have, remain consistent in your visual materials, your written materials. It's all going to be okay, and you've got this.
All right, so at this point, we currently do not have any questions in the chat. So I would like to remind everybody watching, if you have a question, feel free to post that in the Q&A portion of the chat. Or else if you'd rather share audio and video and hop up on stage, we can have a little bit more of a discussion.
Also, if anyone has questions they wanted to just email, they could always email at leo.vjf@michigan.gov. So that's a possibility as well.
Posted the link for the survey in the chat. So if you could all just take a moment to respond to that, it would be greatly appreciated. We'll give it another minute here or so and see if anyone has any questions.
All right. I can take this opportunity to say, Joe, Elise, Emma, thank you so much. And Tom, you too.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks for having me.
Well, again, one more call, leo-vjf@michigan.gov. If you do have questions, if anything pops up to you later, if we're not seeing any questions, Tom, I just wish everyone a great rest of the day.
Yep, no more questions coming through. So this will end the presentation for today. Thank you to all of the presenters. It was great to see you, and thank you so much for the presentation. Everyone who is watching, we appreciate your time. We hope you had some great takeaways from today. And please enjoy the rest of the conference. The exhibitor/networking break is up next. So take some time after this session to video chat with the exhibitors or see their informational videos. And then you can also check out the networking tab as well to be randomly paired with another attendee for a couple of minutes of chat. So again, thank you all for coming and have a great rest of the day.